Tanks are one of the most powerful weapons on the battlefield, but they'll also mark you as a high priority target that will lead you to exploding very quickly if you don't know how to use them correctly. Fortunately, there are some principles you can use to help increase your survivability and turn you into an unstoppable killing machine. The first principle, although it might not seem that exciting, is absolutely without a doubt the most important, and that is positioning. Tanks excel when they're at medium to long range, and they're weak when they're at short ranges. There's a couple different reasons for this, but the main one being that tanks have a slow turret swivel speed, so even if you see an enemy behind you, you might not be able to turn your gun around all the way before they get a shot on you. What this means is you generally do not want to progress in front of your infantry. If you can help it, you always want to have friendly infantry in front of you, or at the very least, beside you, so that you never have to worry about enemy engineers getting a shot on your sides. Additionally, especially on urban maps, tanks are not good at shooting above themselves. Sure, you may have a gunner that can help pick off troops above you, but generally, it's very easy for the enemies to get a shot on you if they are directly above you. Instead, if you progress slowly with your infantry allies, they can go with you and make sure that there's no enemies on the buildings above or around you. This is a nice segue into my second principle, which is treat the enemy soldiers like cockroaches. If you miss even one soldier, their squad can spawn on that soldier, so one engineer turns into 4 engineers, and 4 engineers leads you to dying in just a few short seconds. This is yet another reason why it's important to stay with your allies, because your allies can go clear the buildings and make sure that they squashed every last cockroach in there, leaving you safe to move forward with them. To sum these two principles up, tanks are fire support vehicles. They are not transport vehicles. You should not drive them directly into enemy points and try to cap them by yourself. A good rule of thumb is that if you look left and you look right and you do not see allied soldiers either in front of you or at least next to you, you're probably too far forward and you should pull back. On open maps like Myrick Valley, things change a little bit because infantry can't get above you and they can't hide in buildings. However, these open maps tend to have other threats like jets and helicopters, which can kill you just as quickly as a squad of engineers can. Because of this, you'll still generally want to stay nearby your allies, because most often an isolated tank ends up as a dead tank. One last principle I want to cover before we get into weapon loadouts is knowing when and how to evac. In general, you'll want to fall back and repair when you drop to 50% health or lower. This will maximize your survivability and keep you in the battle for longer. To evacuate effectively, you're going to want to drive backwards. There's 2 reasons for this. The first reason is simply that it's awkward to do a full 180 spin when you're in the middle of taking damage, and the amount of time it takes to actually turn around could be the difference between living or exploding. The second reason you'll want to drive backwards is that tanks take a different amount of damage depending on where they're hit. They take the least amount of damage when they're hit in the front, they take more damage when they're hit in the sides, and they take the most amount of damage when they're hit in the rear. By driving backwards and keeping the main body of your tank facing the enemy and only your turret facing the other way, you're guaranteeing that your enemy only has a shot at where you are least vulnerable. This is another reason why you want to keep your allies at the sides of you and behind you, because they can help protect you against these vulnerable shots at your rear. Granted, driving backwards might feel very awkward at first, but it really is the way to get out of danger the fastest while also minimizing the amount of damage you can take. The last principle I want to cover before we get to weapon loadouts is to never, under any circumstances, bail out of your tank when you're about to die. The reason being is because if your enemy is on top of their game and they see you bail out of the tank, they could just not shoot that final rocket and instead steal the tank for themselves. This dramatically shifts the balance of the game because say each team is supposed to only have 1 tank, now the enemy team has 2 tanks and you have 0 tanks. In other words, you are absolutely screwed. Don't be the guy that gives away a tank to the enemy team. Of course, you can still get out of your tank to repair it, but if you're doing this, you should be well behind friendly lines and you shouldn't need to worry about an enemy stealing your tank. When it comes to choosing weapon loadouts, it's important to understand the roles and purposes of each weapon type. Starting with the high explosive round that I have selected here, this is a low penetration but high splash damage weapon designed for engaging infantry. On the other end of the spectrum, we have this armor-piercing shell, which is the opposite. It's high penetration but low splash damage, designed for attacking enemy vehicles and armor. In the middle, you have this multi-purpose weapon, but it's important to understand that when something is multi-purpose, it trades off being excellent at one thing to just being okay at multiple things. In Battlefield 4, the last Battlefield title I played, these multi-purpose shells played a bigger role because you weren't certain whether you would come across tanks or infantry. However, in Battlefield 6, you're not limited to one primary weapon type. You actually get to select 2 primary shells here, as well as a third weapon, which is called secondary, but really more of a tertiary weapon. Because you can select 2 primary weapon types, you might as well take the 2 shells that are designed for their exact jobs rather than trying to take this multi-purpose shell. Because if you're coming across an enemy tank, you'll want the shell that's designed for attacking enemy tanks, and if you're trying to kill infantry hiding around a corner, you'll want the shell with high splash damage. The anti-personnel shell is actually a shotgun round, which is kind of fun to try out, but honestly, I've never had an issue killing infantry with either the machine gun or the high explosive round, so I almost never run with this. The aim-guided is a viable option, especially if someone on your team is laser designating targets, but again, virtually every match I'm running both the armor shell and the high explosive shell. As far as the secondary weapon, or really the tertiary weapons goes, this is really up to you. You can get kills just fine with them if you're positioned correctly, so play around with them and see what floats your boat. For the upgrade slots, none of them are going to hurt you, so remember that even though there might be a best one, you can play around with whatever you want. With that in mind, I generally go with projectile intercept because it makes you invulnerable for a short period of time, and for the second upgrade slot, I go with enhanced loading because it increases the damage output of my tank. Again though, they're all going to help you, so take a look through what all of these do and play around with them, see which one you like. The gunner's weapons also comes down to preference. Right now I'm running with the grenade launcher, but if you choose the light machine gun or the heavy machine gun, anything will get the job done. The gunner has 2 upgrade slots, and they're both situational, so whichever one you select, just remember what purpose it serves. The smoke wall can help you get out of a dangerous situation, and the countermeasures can destroy mines in C4. Both are useful, just remember which one you have selected for when you're actually on the battlefield. The infantry fighting vehicles operate differently than the main battle tank, and in particular, as the name suggests, they excel when they are fighting infantry. So with that in mind, I have the high explosive rounds selected because they're most effective against infantry, and the secondary really depends on whether you want to go as a multi-role IFV or whether you want to specialize in fighting infantry exclusively. At the moment, I have the aim-guided missile selected, but if your teammate is lasing targets, the lock-guided missile might be very useful. And if you just want to focus on fighting infantry, the light rockets will make you an absolutely infantry-slaying machine. Again, just remember earlier that since I have this aim-guided missile selected, this is more of a multi-role IFV, which means it'll do slightly better at killing vehicles, but at the same time, it makes it slightly worse at its role of killing infantry. Generally, this is a pretty solid loadout because the primary weapon does such a great job at killing infantry, so it's really up to you how you want to spec out your vehicle. The upgrades, similarly, all of them are going to help you, so take a look here and see what you want to use. We do not get the active protection system that the tank does, so you cannot be invulnerable on the IFV. So just take a look here and see what you want to run. I don't have a strong preference on any of these upgrades. With all that being said, if you guys want a deeper dive on all of the upgrades and all of the weapons, I can do that, but in general, this should get you by on how to spec out your vehicles. This all should be more than enough information to get you off to a good start with vehicles in Battlefield 6, but if I missed anything, feel free to add it below. If you'd like to see this in action, check out this video of me and a gunner getting about 40 kills on an urban map. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.